So, both the JBL Charge 6 and the Sony ULT Field 3 are brand new mid-size speakers for summer 2025. Now, for the last few years, the JBL Charge 5 has been my favorite mid-size speaker to use and recommend. But Sony's new ULT lineup of speakers have been very impressive lately, and the Sony ULT Field 3 has some very big improvements to it, just like the Sony ULT Field 5. So today, we're going to compare the brand new JBL Charge 6 to the brand new Sony ULT Field 3, and honestly, this is a very tough decision, and I'm not just saying that for the views. We're good on pricing. Both the JBL Charge 6 and the Sony ULT Field 3 have a retail price of $200. Both of these speakers have gotten a price increase from their predecessors, but I do expect both of these speakers to go on sale during shopping holidays. Nonetheless, if you want to pick either of these two speakers up, they'll be linked down below, or you can always press on the YouTube shopping button, and if you want to further support the channel, then you can always pick up some merch. So first, there's the design of these speakers. Now, both of these speakers are very durable because they both have a mostly fabric wrap body, so they'll be able to stand up to constant abuse from bumps and scrapes, and both of these speakers are waterproof, so they'll both be perfectly fine if they get a little wet, or if you have an annoying friend that just keeps throwing your speakers into the pool because they're easily impressed. However, I do want to point out that the USB-C port on the Charge 6 is exposed, whereas the USB-C port on the ULT Field 3 is covered. So with the Charge 6, you do have to make sure that its port is properly dry before you can charge it back up, whereas that isn't an issue for the Sony ULT Field 3. Now, I know that this is a very niche scenario, but it is something that I do want to point out because it is something that I would have to put up with when I would travel with my JBL Charge 5. But overall, both of these speakers are great options if you're looking for something durable and portable. However, design-wise, these speakers are very different. Now, the Sony ULT Field 3 is significantly larger than the JBL Charge 6. I feel that you can easily throw the Charge 6 into your backpack, whereas with the Sony, not so much. But the ULT Field 3 does come included with a shoulder strap, so it's very easy to carry it around on its own. Now, the JBL Charge 6 does have a new carrying handle that you can attach, and you can use it in two different positions, but personally, I do prefer the shoulder strap on the ULT Field 3 over the carrying handle on the JBL Charge 6. So overall, the JBL Charge 6 is smaller and more stylized than the Sony ULT Field 3, whereas the Sony ULT Field 3 is a little large for a mid-size speaker, but I really like having that included shoulder strap, because I know that with the JBL Charge 6, you'll probably be able to get a third-party shoulder strap, but with the ULT Field 3, it already comes included. But then there's the battery life on these speakers. Both of these speakers have an advertised battery life of 24 hours, which is a lot for mid-size speakers, and both of these speakers have a stamina mode, so you'll be able to extend their battery lives even more. But for me, real-world use with both of these speakers playing at 80% volume and with their preferred EQs, which means the signature EQ on the Charge 6 and the ULT button being turned on the ULT Field 3. The Charge 6 is good for around 10 hours of playback time, whereas the ULT Field 3 is good for around 12 hours of playback time, and volume performance on these speakers is very similar to one another. However, the ULT Field 3 does get a little louder than the Charge 6, but not enough so that I can go, oh my god, the ULT Field 3 gets a lot louder than the Charge 6. And to charge these speakers, like I mentioned earlier, both of these speakers charge via a USB-C port. And the really cool thing here is that with both of these USB-C ports, you can also use them to charge your own devices, which I feel is very useful, especially if you plan on taking either of these two speakers to the beach or lake. However, the main difference here is that with the Charge 6, you can also use its USB-C port as a wired connection, whereas with the ULT Field 3, you can only use this speaker wirelessly. And when it comes to Bluetooth connectivity, both of these speakers can be connected to two devices at the same time, so you and a friend can both be DJ. Latency is not an issue for either of these two speakers, so you can use them to watch videos with on your phone. And when it comes to audio codecs, both of these speakers have support for SBC and AAC. But wait, if you want to further support the channel, then check out our partners over at Factor. Factor ships chef-cooked meals right to your door, which are genuinely very tasty, they're healthy, and they're super easy to prepare, and cleanup is super easy as well. You can choose from 40 different meals a week, and you can sort through them by preferences or dietary needs. Personally, I'm a fan of the Tex-Mex beef bowl. It's hearty and spicy. The chimichurri chicken breast is super tasty and macro-friendly, and the honey butter chicken breast with mashed potatoes are perfect for when you need something warm and comfy. So click on our link down below and get 50% off on your first order, and you're gonna get free shipping for life, and you're gonna get 2 free add-ons for life as well. I actually went with the wellness shots. Factor makes it very easy to eat good, save money, and save time. But with all that out of the way, let's talk about sound. When it comes to speaker setup, both of these speakers have a front-mount firing woofer, a front-mount firing tweeter, and dual pass radiators that shoot out the sides. And this woofer and tweeter setup on both of these speakers is a big deal because it's going to help with instrument separation, and this setup is typically found on more premium speakers. So like you have just seen, the woofer handles the mids and the tweeter handles the highs. So this is just going to help your speakers sound more open, and is going to help with the overall instrument separation. But now we're going to go ahead and jump into the sound test. Both of these speakers are using their preferred EQs. So the Charge 6 is playing with its signature EQ, and the ULT Field 3 is playing with its ULT feature turned on. And we're going to be using both of these speakers while they're playing at 75% volume and at max volume.
I feel the gravity pull and it keeps me away. I would rather be here, lonely in space. I've made up my mind, I just wanna be free. I live my own life in a new galaxy. I wanna be weightless in the silence of the night sky. I wanna free fall into nothing at all. I'm taking the moment, starting all over. I wanna be free and live my own life in a new galaxy. Teasing my mind. I can finally breathe when I'm closing my eyes. Never realized what I just could do. Now I know I'm better off without you. I wanna be weightless in the silence of the night sky. I wanna free fall into nothing. Taking the moment, starting all over. I wanna be free and live my own life in a new galaxy.
So when it comes to sound, I think both of these speakers sound good. You can't go wrong with either one. However, I do feel that the Sony ULT Field 3 sounds a little better than the JBL Charge 6, because the Sony ULT Field 3 has a little more emphasis on the mids, and it also has noticeably more kick in its bass. And when it comes to max volume performance, I feel that both of these speakers are going to be good for like a 5 to 8 person get together, but I do feel that the amount of sound that's coming out of the Charge 6 is very impressive for its size, whereas with the ULT Field 3, since the speaker is noticeably larger, I kind of expect it to get this loud, if that makes sense. But also keep in mind, if you were to use either of these two speakers while they're plugged in, you are not going to get a performance boost out of them. But I do feel that the Sony ULT Field 3 gets a little louder than the Charge 6, but it's not a noticeable enough difference to definitely say that, oh, the ULT Field 3 gets louder than the Charge 6. However, with the Charge 6, I do feel that JBL is pushing the speaker a little too hard, because sometimes you might hear a little bit of distortion on rare occasions. Now, it didn't happen during the sound test, but I have heard a little bit of distortion coming out of the Charge 6 in rare occasions. Whereas distortion is not a problem for the ULT Field 3. So overall, both of these speakers sound good, but I do feel that the Sony ULT Field 3 sounds a little better than the JBL Charge 6, but it only wins here by a few millimeters. But finally, let's talk about pairing these speakers up with other speakers. Now, with both of these speakers, if you have two of the exact same speakers, then you can wirelessly pair them up and get them to play in left and right stereo mode. But with the Sony ULT Field 3, it's using Sony's Party Connect, so you can pair it up with other Sony speakers that are also using Party Connect, like a ULT Field 7, an XG500, XG300, XE300, XE200, or to an XB43, XB33, XB23, or to another ULT Field 3, or to an ULT Field 5, and you can pair up to 100 speakers together and get them to play in sync. But also, you can pair your smaller Sony speakers that are using Party Connect to any of Sony's larger speakers that are also using Party Connect, like an ULT Tower 10 or an ULT Tower 9, or to an XV800, XV500, or to an XP700 or XP500. The only unfortunate thing here is you cannot connect the Sony ULT Field 3 to the Sony ULT Field 1, and I really feel that this is unfortunate because the Sony ULT Field 1 is currently my favorite small size speaker to use and recommend. But then there's the JBL Charge 6, and this speaker is using Auracast, so you can pair it up to other JBL speakers that are also using Auracast, like either another JBL Charge 6 or to an Extreme 4, or to a JBL Flip 7, or to a Clip 5, or to a Go 4. And you can also pair it up to any of JBL's larger party boxes that are also using Auracast, like either a Party Box Encore 2, or to a Party Box 120, Party Box 320, Party Box 520, or even to a Party Box Ultimate. However, unlike the JBL Extreme 4, which is also using Auracast, you cannot connect your JBL Charge 6 to any of JBL's older speakers that are using Party Boost, and I don't know if the JBL Charge 6 will be able to connect to Party Boost speakers in the future. However, with Auracast, you can also pair your JBL Charge 6 to any other speaker out there that's also using Auracast, even if it's not a JBL speaker. Now, no, the ULT Field 3 isn't using Auracast, so if you plan on growing your collection of speakers, you are going to have to stick inside of Sony's ecosystem. But personally, I don't really mind, because I think that it's only a small amount of people that plan on buying multiple speakers from different brands. But more importantly, I have noticed that Sony's Party Connect is more stable and easier to use compared to Auracast, because for at least right now, I have noticed that echoes form a lot regularly with my Auracast speakers. But overall, if you already have an Auracast speaker or a Party Box, then you might want to go with the JBL Charge 6, or if you already have some Sony speaker, then you'll want to go with the Sony ULT Field 3. But if this is your first time getting a speaker, then technically you do want to go with the JBL Charge 6 because it has Auracast, so it's going to be more flexible in the future. But with all that being said, if you're trying to choose between the JBL Charge 6 and the Sony ULT Field 3, I honestly think that it is a tough call. Now, you can't go wrong with either one, but I do feel that the Sony ULT Field 3 sounds a little better than the JBL Charge 6. The Sony sounds better in the mids, and it puts out a little bit more bass and it gets a little louder. Plus, distortion is never an issue for this speaker. Now, the Charge 6 also sounds good, but I do feel that JBL is pushing the speaker a little too hard, and sometimes you might hear a little bit of distortion on rare occasions. But since the JBL Charge 6 is noticeably smaller than the ULT Field 3, I feel that the JBL Charge 6 is more impressive from a sound to size ratio. Honestly, I think Auracast might be a deciding factor here for some people, but I do prefer the ULT Field 3 here because it comes included with that shoulder strap. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit the like button and get subscribed. If you want to pick any of the products up, they'll be linked down below. And if you want to further support the channel, check out the merch. I made some shirts and hoodies that look and feel great. And you know I can be very particular, so I'll only slap my name on something if I'm really proud of it.